This program is brought to you by the partners of A Rood Awakening International. Help others find truth. Support A Rood Awakening International today.
Essential oils have enjoyed mass popularity in the last decade, but the science of infused and essential oils dates back to ancient times. Rachelle and Steve Siefken give us a history lesson about oils used in the Bible and point out intriguing details we may have missed. Because it's the end of the sixth day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live. Well, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. It's Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. We're going to learn about essential oils in the Bible tonight with Rachelle and Steve Siefken. It's the first of a 4-episode series. But first, before we forget, Happy New Year. The barley is Aviv, and we are into a brand new year on the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. There you see it on the screen, and you can actually get that calendar as well. And that means that our Passover event is next weekend. Wow. So let's talk about that with my co-host, Matt Weimer. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
So we have lots to talk about today because we're starting a new month. Of course, it's the new year and all that kind of thing, and Passover. But let's talk about the love gift first, because that is also you.
Yes, yes.
So this is the second half of your political borders versus ancient borders series kind of thing. That, and we're calling this the end from the beginning.
Yes. Because,
well, you explain it. What are you talking about on this?
So this finishes the series, or the love gift that I did in February, and where I talked a lot about Gog of Magog. This talks about other places in the Middle East that have everything to do with the end times. Places covering like Egypt, Arabia, Jordan, Edom, Moab, Ammon, other places that I didn't mention in the first series to finish it up, basically.
Yeah, and we actually had a comment from our floor director here who edited that for you. He said it was really good, so he enjoyed it, so that's great. Now, speaking of that, at our Passover event, we have lots of great guests. We have Kamal Salim, former child jihadist, and then later a political jihadist. So he's gonna be coming here giving us some very important information. Al McCarn, John Snyder, who will maybe feature a little bit more next week, but also Joel Richardson.
Yes.
And Joel, now he's not going to be here. It's going to be pre-recorded, but still, you get the teaching.
Yeah.
Especially if you watch online, you're not going to notice the difference. But Joel is teaching on something that you said kind of dovetails with your love gift teaching. What is that?
So Joel's going to be talking about like a second Passover concept. And what this is he's showing how Yeshua will actually follow the same route as what Moses and the Israelites did in the first Exodus. So, and part of that is recorded in Isaiah 63, where I talk about, in this love gift teaching, I'll be talking about Basra, modern day Busira, Jordan. Yeshua actually comes through there, and it talks about his garments being covered in blood.
Oh, okay. So that really ties in with Revelation. I'm sure people go, wait a minute, garment covered in blood. I've heard this before.
Yep,
but how many people really go back to Isaiah 63 and correlate that,
That's
right? So I'm glad you did in the love gift teaching, and Joel's going to do that as well.
Yes.
So this month's love gift teaching as well comes with a couple of other gifts. For a gift of $50 or more, of course, you get Matt's teaching, which is a wonderful thing called The End from the Beginning. And secondly, for the gift of $100 or more, you'll get that. But something really cool as well, some Passover coasters, customized. We had them customized with get this, the lyrics to Michael Rood's famous 10 Plagues of Egypt parody song that we always do at Passover. It's hilarious. It's based on what, the 12 Days of Christmas or something?
Yes, right. Yeah, so, it's hilarious.
That's awesome. And then also for a gift of $300 or more, a beautiful 18-inch solid birch, it's like a door hanger kind of thing with Pesach on it, Happy Pesach. And it's big. I mean, it's a big thing. And we'll show it maybe in next week or something like that. But yeah, a great thing for Passover. So make sure you get it now. And there's the information on the bottom of your screen where you can get the love gift. So Matt, thank you for joining us on stage today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you here. All right, so Rachelle and Steve Siefken give us a history lesson about oils in the Bible and point out intriguing details we may have missed. First, here's the Kiddush with Michael Rood.
On the morning that the Passover lambs were selected, there were 2 loaves that were put on the wall of the temple. When the first one was removed, after that, no more leavened bread was eaten. When the second loaf was removed, then all of the leavened bread in the land of Israel was then burned, because the feast of unleavened bread was going to commence at sunset that evening. The night before, Yeshua took artos. He took leavened bread, and he blessed the Most High in the presence of his disciples, and he interpreted the Kiddush Mikra, the holy rehearsal that Melchizedek put in place with Abraham. Yeshua said the prayer of the Melech Tzaddik, Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem haaretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, Yehovah, our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And he said, this represents my body, which is now broken for you. As often as you do this in remembrance of me. Then Yeshua took the cup, and he said, Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam, Borei pri hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our God, the King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And then he said, you take my cup, divide it among yourselves. I will not drink a sip of the fruit of the vine till I drink it with you in my Father's kingdom. So as often as we do this now, we rehearse not only his death, but we rehearse that we will be at the marriage supper of the Lamb, and at the marriage supper of the Lamb, he will take his cup and say, L'chaim, to life everlasting. And until then, Shabbat Shalom.
In the Bible, God had recipes for things that were just for him. So the altar of incense had a recipe that was just for him, but there were also essential oils that there was a recipe that was just for him too. So obviously they used essential oils in the Bible. We don't have a lot of information about that, or maybe we do. Let's ask some people who really know about that. Steve and Rachelle Siefken, welcome to Shabbat Night Live.
Hello, it's great to be here.
You know, so Rachelle, obviously you've brought Steve here before.
Yes.
And yeah, we've talked all about how to read the Bible as a law book, and I know our audience found that fascinating. I found it fascinating. I read the Bible in a completely different way now, by the way, so thank you for that awesome, great information. And today we have some stuff that both of you guys are experts in, and we're gonna tag team a little bit today and talk about essential oils. Now, first of all, people might think, oh, well, why didn't you do this on a Health Awakening show? Well, you have more information than we have for a Health Awakening show, first of all. And secondly, you know, there's a lot of good information we can use every day. Now, I know, Steve, you want to say something about the fact that, you know, obviously we're not advocating certain oils or companies or anything like this, and nobody up here is a doctor or an expert in this. So this is just sort of a do it on your own type of thing, right?
Yes, we're not medical doctors. We're not licensed in any way. We're not aromatherapists. We're just sharing information we've studied. It's just simply our opinion. I like to cite sources, so I'm going to cite some people who do know what they're talking about and share some of that information. There's definitely a reason to believe that essential oils will help us in many ways.
Okay.
And but I always like to give that disclaimer, because you're the health expert here, not me.
Well, and I'm no expert in essential oils. Yeah, obviously, I mean, you guys have a ton of stuff. We're going to bring stuff up here. We're going to do 4 episodes, and we're going to share a little bit about that in a second. But you guys obviously are experts in this. You have dozens sitting over there on the corner of the table. And Rachelle, you apparently are the home's expert in this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was sort of brought along because I use them in my day-to-day life, right? Because I'm in, you know, with the kids and in the home and things like that. And so I hope I can relate to the audience on that. And so share some of our personal experiences and some advice on that. Like you said, we're teachers, but not in this.
Well, and just before the cameras came on, I mentioned I had a headache. We have got some barometric pressure differences outside lately, and that's giving me a bit of a headache. So you just put some stuff on me just a few minutes ago.
Yes.
So we'll see how that progress goes, because I'm going to see this stuff in action. Yeah. All right, so like I said, we're going to tag team the second half of this sort of, Rachelle, you'll be sort of taking over. Yep. But first, Steve, you wanted to give us sort of an overview of what we're going to do for this whole series.
Yes, I would love to do that. We have a quick agenda that I would like to share. This first episode, we want to talk about the definition of essential oils. Just what are they? You hear about it, people talk about it, but what really are they? And sometimes we don't really look at that in the right mindset or the right light. Then I want to share some of the history of essential oils, because it's just amazing how much we've used them in the history of mankind. And today, they've kind of made a resurgence recently, but they really weren't as popular up until maybe the past 10 years. It wasn't as well known. And then we're finally going to finish. Rachelle's going to share just some of our experiences. We've been doing this since 2008, and we've got lots of experience with it, lots of, wow, look what this did. It was just amazing that this oil solved this problem for us. And she's really the expert on that. I like to do a lot of the studying, but she does the practical everyday use. So usually when I'm having something like, hey, Rachelle, help me out with this, even though I've done most of the study, but I need her expertise because she's doing it every day.
And this is really kind of where people can be their own doctor, right? People they look at that phrase and go, oh gosh, I can never be my own doctor. I'm not licensed, I don't know what I'm doing. But we're trained to think of that in terms of drugs and complicated things and surgery and like, oh, that's not me, I don't want to hurt myself. It's pretty hard to hurt yourself with essential oils. Now, there are some precautions, of course, you have to take, but this really puts the power in people's hands to do this at home, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about as well as safety, and safety with the oils, because that's a really important aspect to this whole thing. So
there's definitely some things you want to be aware of. They're definitely safer, in my opinion, than drugs and medication that we standard use. But there's some things to be aware of because they're very powerful oils that can affect how your body's functioning and can do things for you.
And I wouldn't shy away from the word medication. This is the old school, real world medication. This is what the medicine men of old used, right? I mean, this is, a lot of times, they weren't concocting drugs. They were using things in nature, put them together, and found that it healed people of all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So why can't we go back to that? Why do we have to stick with standard medical stuff? Why don't we go ahead and do some of the stuff at home? I mean, really this puts the power back into people's hands.
Sure.
All right, so go ahead. So the definition of an essential oil, did you want to get into that right away, or?
Oh, of course. I've got a few slides I'd like to share that have this essential oils defined. Here's these are studies that I'm sharing, and some experts, chemists. Some of them are chemists, and they're the ones studying this. Essential oils are natural products derived from aromatic plants, traditionally used all over the world for disinfection, as anti-inflammatory, relaxing, and stimulating substances, and with potential in modern exploitation in clinical medicine. So this is part of our history as the human race, basically, and we've always used these as medicine in the past, and we just don't look at them that way today. I like this guy. This is Kurt Schnaubelt. I don't know if I said that correctly, but he's a chemist, and I like his definitions. He's got a neat book on the intelligence of essential oils and how they heal with intelligence, and it's pretty fascinating. But he said the profound and complete therapeutic effects of essential oils derive from more than their pleasant fragrance. They have vital electromagnetic properties and vibrational energies that invigorate the mind, the soul, the body's energy, and thus their functioning.
Now, I like what's the date on there? Is it 1998 or something? What does it say there in the fine print? It's 98?
1998.
98, okay, I was looking at a monitor up here to see that date. See, because right now we hear vibrational energies, and vibrational energies, electromagnetic therapies, all this type of thing, vibrational, therapies are kind of the new thing, right?
Actually, they're an old thing that they've got a new spin on, or they present
Exactly my point, because if it was said this way in 1998 and people thinking, oh, this is a new thing, not really. Everything has a vibration to it.
Yeah.
And we need to come to terms with that. This is not a, what do you call it? It's not a new age thing.
Yeah, we have a whole slide where we talk about that.
You're right ahead of me.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
You're going exactly where we're headed at.
Okay, great.
I wanted to put up a quick explanation.
Yeah,
one of the biggest pushbacks we get from people is, oh, this sounds like New Age. And so I just want to say, this is not New Age philosophy. It really isn't. Terms like vibrational energy, electromagnetic properties, and the body's energy should not scare us. But they do in church circles and Christian circles. We hear that and we immediately think, well, this sounds very New Age. There is a biblical perspective to have with all of those things.
Yeah, like people think, oh, this is all crystals and spells
Right.
and all that. No,
It's
no.
all woo-woo kind of.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought I had the same thought, honestly, when I was first heard about essential oils. I was like, again, it was from more of my friends that are a little bit more kind of someone out there in their thinking. And I was
Well,
like,
you do live in California, so.
That is
Okay, good
true.
point.
We do live
Good
in
point.
California. Not too far from Hollywood.
Oh.
so,
Okay.
so I immediately steer away from it because again, it's like, you kind of go, what is this stuff?
Yeah, we can get to Hollywood in just a couple of hours, I think.
Oh, wow,
not
okay.
that
So you're right in the
Yeah.
thick of that. I mean,
We
there's
are.
lots of people doing this stuff out
Yes.
there. Okay.
But all vibrational energy is a frequency that something emits. And essential oils, they're somewhere between 52 and 320 megahertz, so they vary quite a bit. Dry herbs are like 12 to 22. Fresh vegetables, 10 to 15. Processed and canned foods have no measurable frequency.
I did not know that.
That tells us something.
Wow.
We don't have a ton of science about this. I like to share this because we should. We should be studying this stuff and we should be trying to figure it out and recognize why were these people in ancient times using this information and we're just kind of ignoring it today. And I think there's something to it. I wish we would spend more money on some of these studies, or just maybe the government should get involved with our health industry and send studies on these. In fact, in some of the later episodes, I want to cite some people that did studies on their own, said, hey, we need to look at this more. We really need to look at this.
Energy medicine too, I tell people all the time. I mean, I'm a naturopath. I recommend, that people try supplements all the time. I think there's going to be a day when we look back at this and go, how archaic was that?
Yeah.
That we took pills for everything. It was magnesium and this and that. Come on, what were we thinking? Why didn't we just use energy medicine? I think energy medicine is the future, and this is a big part of it.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I like to share this because people are familiar with a lady named Heidi Yellen did a study in 2003 about the frequencies of fabrics even. So a similar topic, wool and linen have a high frequency of like 5,000. Mixing certain fabrics cancel out their frequency. That's interesting.
Where have we heard that before?
There's a law that says not to mix fabrics, specifically wool and linen. And, linen's used in the medical industry all the time. It was used in the priesthood, the hospitals of their day as well. So this is stuff that I think we should be open to considering and looking at that information and just seeing if it's something we should
It's
do.
like God knew what he was doing,
Imagine that.
right?
Right.
Finally, she concluded people have a signature frequency of around 100. And that's where the essential oils come in. They're trying to balance your body. There's a difference. I heard it put this way. There's two types of sicknesses. You're either starving or you're poisoned.
Huh.
Your body's lacking some sort of a nutrient, or you have a toxin that you need to remove.
Yep.
And both of those things, essential oils can help you with. And the truth is, that covers almost everything.
When I worked for the Hallelujah Diet, and some people might know that name, but from 2008 to 2013, that was their big thing. All disease is caused by toxicity and or deficiency.
Right.
And that's exactly
Maybe
what
that's
you
where
just
I
said.
heard it from.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be.
I can't think of where I heard it from.
But no,
I did
that's
hear that.
exactly right though. Yep.
And so essential oils, they're basically the circulating juices of plants. And they have a long history going back thousands of years. And I want to share some of that history because it just fascinates me. Going to school, I wasn't a big history fan. I dreaded history class. But as an adult now, I just love history. It's one of my favorite topics. And I just can't get off of that topic from the internet. I'm always researching something and trying to find out. But essential oils have a very long history. Here's some things. First, they started as infused oils. That's something that's not always mentioned in the circles of essential oils. We have one here. An infused oil is basically where you take a fatty oil, any kind of an oil, and you put a substance in there and let it sit for a month, maybe two, and then they kind of blend together. Sometimes they'd actually smash them together to get the essence of that plant out. And that's different than an essential oil because of the process called distillation, where we can get a much more higher potency of that substance. So they're not exactly the same thing, but they kind of started this way in our history.
So what's in this one? What have you got?
So this
here?
was a gift from a friend of ours, so I'm not even positive all the ingredients on here. I believe, so this is an olive oil, and I believe that there is like an orange peel in here, and I think there's some capers and stuff at the bottom. And so we were using this for our Shabbat night dinners.
Okay.
Essentially, when we were doing communion and stuff. And so we use the olive oil.
So not just for medication,
basically
this is
for
for
that.
food too, and all
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. But here's some quotes I would like to share just about the history. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, an old school encyclopedia.
We used to have the set at home, yep.
It's free online. It's got some great information, but this is what they said about essential oils. The first records of essential oils come from ancient India, Persia, and Egypt. And both Greece and Rome conducted extensive trade in odoriferous oils and ointments with the countries of the Orient. Most probably these products were extracts prepared by placing flowers, roots, and leaves in fatty oils. That's what infused oils, that's what they were. In most ancient cultures, odorous plants or their resinous products were used directly. But the knowledge of distillation spread to Europe during the Middle Ages. So we didn't have essential oils till really the Middle Ages. Although prior to that, in little pockets, they were distilling just on a small scale, but they didn't have it as advanced until the Middle Ages. It just exploded. And all of a sudden, everything became essential oils instead of an infused oil. And isolation of essential oils by distillation was described during the 11th and 13th centuries. These distilled products became a specialty of the European medieval pharmacies. And by about 1500, the following products had been introduced: oils of cedarwood, calamus, costus, rose, rosemary, spike, incense, turpentine, sage, cinnamon, benzoin, and myrrh. Lots of oils just exploded at this time from just the distillation process, because all of a sudden they became very, very powerful, very much stronger than the infused oils.
Right. So the distillation, so we wouldn't have distilled essential oils in the Bible then, because they came a lot later.
Most likely not, although there were pockets of people using that technology centuries before the Messiah, but it wasn't well known, and it wasn't, I guess the art wasn't perfected to the point where they knew about the process and they understood it, but they didn't have it down like they did in the Middle Ages. That's when it really kind of
the mass production of it.
So it would be mostly like the infused oils we saw here that you were holding a second ago, Rachelle.
Yeah, most likely Yeshua was using infused oils. He wasn't using essential oils.
Okay.
But they do the same thing. They have the same purpose, because the essential oils, Rochelle's going to share later, you really should dilute them with a carrier oil, which makes them much more like an infused oil.
Let's talk a little bit about that, if we can just define that too, unless we're going to touch on that later.
We're going to touch about that in the second episode. We're going to talk all about carrier oils, because there's different ones that benefit for different reasons.
So real quick though, a carrier oil is kind of like the diluted sort of, well, carrier. It's not. It doesn't have any of these. The odoriferous. No.
Odoriferous.
Yeah.
So actually, the carrier oils have their own benefits, and actually they have some of their own scents and stuff with them.
Oh, okay.
So depending on what you're trying to treat and what skin you have, there's different carrier oils. So yeah, you would mix them, and of course, the idea is that they help carry them into the skin.
Okay, and they help dilute it as well, because the essential oils are very, very strong.
Right. Yeah, and some of them are, powerful to the point where it might affect your skin in a negative way, because if you just put it on directly. So we're going to get to all that throughout this series.
Great. Okay.
The best predictor of the future is history, especially when it comes to biblical prophecy. But it's not easy. Names of people and places change over time, so how can we properly interpret what we read in the Bible?
The best predictor of the future is history. So if you want to look at what could be happening again, look at what's happened in that same location over time and time again.
In The End from the Beginning, a Rood Awakening's own Matthew Weimer exposes nicknames and code words woven into the tapestry of Scripture that reveal the players and places of end-time events. This teaching is not for sale, and it's not available anywhere online. Instead, we'd like to give you this teaching as a thank you gift for donating to A Rood Awakening International. When you donate $50 as a love gift in April, you'll get The End from the Beginning with Matthew Weimer on DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming on the michaelrood.tv app. Donate $100 and you'll get The End from the Beginning, plus a set of Passover coasters customized with the lyrics to Michael Rood's famous 10 Plagues of Egypt parody song. Donate $300 and you'll get The End from the Beginning, the 10 Plagues of Egypt Passover coasters, and an 18-inch solid birch handmade door hanger featuring a Passover greeting transliterated from Hebrew. These gifts are a limited time offer from Michael Rood to thank you for your support. Make your donation today and receive the $50 gift, the $100 gift, or the $300 gift. Thank you. When you donate to receive the Love Gift, you ensure that these teachings keep coming from A Rood Awakening International. Use your smartphone to scan the QR code on your screen to donate now and receive these limited time gifts. Or call 888-766-3610 or get your gifts online with a donation at monthlylovegift.com.
A little more history. Egypt, ancient Egyptians have used aromatic oils as early as 4500 BC. That's a long time ago. In cosmetics and ointments, they used to make a mixture of different sources of herbal preparations such as aniseed, cedar, onion, myrrh, and grapes in perfume or in medicine. So they used them for both purposes, not just to smell better, but in medication. And sometimes we forget that. I always read the Bible thinking this is just stuff for smelling better. It's their deodorant, so to say.
Right, yeah.
And it just blew my mind to think, no, there is a purpose for it. And the scripture actually defines that for us.
It's part of his other teachings, which is showing the Bible in a logical form. And so you start going like, hey, maybe our God didn't just make stuff up for the fun of it, right? Maybe he put this stuff in here for a reason, and it makes logical sense.
Yep.
And a practical sense.
And it's funny how we can discover that about the Bible, and our Bibles didn't change.
Exactly.
You can go back to that same Bible you've got on the shelf and see that now in a different light. Yeah.
We see the Bible through our lens, and we have to try to overcome that. Often, that's the biggest obstacle we have, is our own lens, our own perspective.
Great.
India, 4,000-year-old record described the Vaidya, I'm not going to say that, Ayurvedic physicians. Their physicians used, is that how you say it?
Yep.
I had a hard time with that one. For therapeutic use. They used it for therapy, for their physicians used it. It was just 4,000 years ago.
We still use some of that today in naturopathy. Some of that medicine is still, that thinking and that same technology is used today.
Yes, absolutely. China, the same thing. 3000 and 2000 BC, they found 700 substances that they use, 700 different plants and different oils that they use for healing. And they knew it was effective, and that's what they used. And today we kind of think, well, those guys weren't as smart as us, so we don't use that anymore. We use something better. And sometimes I flip that around and think, I don't know about that. I wonder if they were smarter than us. Because the holistic approach, I heard it put this way once. You just mentioned having a headache, right? Most times you'll take an aspirin and it'll block the receptors and headache goes away. But then someone asked the question once, I thought was brilliant. Was it the lack of an aspirin that caused your headache? No, what caused it? You got rid of the headache, but there was something, that's a symptom telling you something's not right. Maybe there's a nutrient you're missing. That is far more important to figure out and discover whatever nutrient you're missing or whatever's causing the headache than to just cover it up so that your brain doesn't feel it.
Yep, the cause versus the symptom.
Yes.
Right.
And that's kind of where we've gone today. We're looking at it kind of in a backwards way. They had 700 substances in China, just a massive amount of information. Persia, not as much information, but they used it for medical and pharmaceutical reasons as well. Greece, I thought, was fascinating because there's some pretty famous, well-known people that use these. I want to read this quote. Greek culture, in the temples of Asclepius and Aphrodite, marble tablets with engraved recipes of some medicinal aromas have been found. Hippocrates, considered the father of modern medicine, documented the medicinal importance of over 300 plants. He strongly believed in the medical benefits of fumigation with aromatic oils in the treatment of the plague. He was also convinced that the topical use of aromatic preparations could produce systemic effects.
Now we're going to talk about the difference between aromatic preparations and topical a little bit later too.
Yes, we do.
Yes, absolutely. But that's Hippocrates. This is someone who's well known in the medical.
The Hippocratic Oath is named after him. Yeah.
That just blows me away that they were. I never knew that. This was new information to me in our journey from 2008 until now. That's when we started. I was like, wow, they did this for so many years. And even in Rome, there's another semi-famous person. I hadn't heard of him until I researched this, but Claudius Galen. He was the physician to the gladiators. Oh. And he used essential oils to heal the gladiators. So I really liked that movie Gladiator, and that just fascinated me. And just to see them, to think that these people with injuries or wounds or whatever ailments they had, their physician was using essential oils. I just think that's pretty fascinating. In fact, I just put this up. One of the tables from a scholarly article just listed all the history from Egyptian culture to Iraq, India, China, Greece, Arabia, all the way to modern times, German and France to the early 1900s. They were using essential oils for medicine. And then we kind of stopped for some reason, and it just disappeared. And I'm a fan of trying to bring it back because it's done wonders for our family and for our lives.
True.
These oils are also found throughout the Bible. Here's a few examples. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. Do you know essential oils can rejoice your heart? Lots of them talk about hyssop during the Passover, but lots of them talk about the oil of gladness. How do they affect our emotions? I find that fascinating that they can do that, and they do. The oil of joy, all over the scripture, purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean. And then even Esther, she used things for purification. Of course, what was that? Oil of myrrh, sweet odors. That's what they used to purify and help themselves recover. Then there's the holy anointing oil. That's a big one. I'm a big fan of the temple and the sacrificial system and what they did with the Levitical priesthood. And then there's the holy incense. Even in the New Testament, Hebrews quotes, even your God anointed you with the oil of gladness. All over the New Testament, gold, frankincense, and myrrh at the birth of the Messiah. Hyssop was mentioned in John 19. Mingled with myrrh at the crucifixion. All these New Testament, it's everywhere in the scripture. Precious ointment, poured it on his head. These are all quotes from the old, usually. Ointment of spikenard, mixture of myrrh and aloes. And then finally, I went back to the Old Testament because there's one verse that just kind of tells you, and this is Ezekiel's temple vision, where he's talking about the future temple with the Messiah, and he talks about that river flowing out. Right at the end, he says, and the fruit of this tree shall be for food, and the leaf thereof is for medicine. That's where the circulating juices are. That's where you get the essential oils from. What did God say our medicine was? He basically said essential oils without using the term essential oils.
The leaves of the trees are healing for the nations.
Yes, right? Absolutely. And we just skip past that. But I shared this chart in my first series with you guys on the law being, the Bible being a law book. It's a mosaic chart I kind of made myself. And I came up with 756 commandments, statutes, and judgment, 87 titles of law, 10 commandments under the two greatest commandments. The Messiah came up with this. It's his little organizational structure, but this is why we got into essential oils. When I did this, that's all the titles that I highlighted in blue. It's over a third that deal with essential oils.
Wow.
You just couldn't get away from it. The essential oils were everywhere. And as I'm going through organizing them, just like, what are these oils? So we've got to figure it out. Got to find out, what are these oils for? And it just started a pursuit since about 2008, just trying to understand God's law so we could be obedient, and then trying to figure out what these oils were.
And that's where Rachelle came in and started being the expert on this kind of stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So some of our... excuse me, so now I'm doing it. So some of our experience and understanding obviously has just come from personal use. We have, like you said, we've kind of concluded that we should still practice the Mosaic Law. And in looking at how God was using these essential oils in the scripture is what has made us really start realizing, like, hey, maybe we should be using them as well, right? We want to emulate our Messiah and what he was doing. So while beginning to practice that, we began using the essential oils. So now we're using them in our everyday lives. And so I would kind of want to just share some examples of some of these times that we have, that people have, we've used them, or stories that we've heard of people that have used them. So one of them is a personal example. This was me. I had gotten a sebaceous cyst that means it's under the skin in my leg. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh wow, there's this big like clump under my skin. What is it? And researching it, got nervous about it. And then I just starting to put ointments and different things like that. And nothing changed it, right? Nothing seemed to make it
What
go
do the
away.
doctors want to do? They suggest surgery to remove something like that. If
it's pronounced or it's growing to a certain point. So then I decided I'm gonna look up essential oils and I'm gonna see what essential oils treat it. And I found by just putting twice a day, I just put like a little drop frankincense on that where that cyst was, and I put it and I applied it what they call neat, right? I applied it topical directly on my skin, and in 2.5 days that cyst had shrunk, and within a week it was gone.
Wow. And how big was it when it started?
So it was probably about this big.
So the size of a golf ball?
Yeah, just about,
and
probably.
in 2 weeks, it's gone.
And yeah, and actually in about a week of actually using the oils.
Wow.
It was gone. It had just shrunk because frankincense is an anti-tumoral, so that's one of its benefits. And so it shrunk it down. So that was one of my personal experiences. And then like a year or two later, it came. I had another one at about in the same spot, and I did the same thing. And I waited because again, I wanted to test it. Like, is this really happening? And so I tested it with a few different things. And again, it was the frankincense that did it. So this is my own personal experience. We really have a lot of experience with colds, right? We typically diffuse a blend. So you can, generally the blends are made up of like eucalyptus, lemon, peppermint, tea tree, rosemary. And I found that when I sit there and I'll be like laying there miserable and my husband will just say, hey, Rachelle, why don't you go get the blends? I'm like, because they're over there and I'm over here and I don't feel good. And so he'll set up a diffuser for me, or he'll bring me the oils. And again, it very quickly removes my symptoms almost immediately. And so that's been really beneficial. And so there's some companies, go ahead.
My wife and daughter went to camp a
Yes.
couple weeks ago. Both of them got sick. I think you mostly.
Yeah.
Came back, my first thought is I'm gonna start using these oils. And I should have been sick. I could feel it coming on, but it never took, and now it's over. It's like you can preemptively stop it by just building up your immune system and giving your body what it needs. And we've got lots of stories like that. And that was just recently, because
That was.
I was worried, oh no, I'm going on Shabbat Night Live, I don't want to get sick. And maybe that's what that throat thing was. But it never hit. It never really hit. And you just sense like, well, I should be getting sick, but I'm not.
So even my nephew, when he was younger, he was just really stuffy, and the cold medicine wasn't working for him. He was just all stuffy and stuff. And so she said, do you have anything? And I said, I've got this blend. It's supposed to help you breathe easier. And he goes, okay. And so she went and she put a little bit on his back. I mean, he was 8, 9, and she put a little bit on his back. And he came out a few minutes later and he said, Mom, I can breathe easier. We thought it was hilarious because that was the name of the blend. And so it does, like obviously they work. We've treated rashes, we've treated scratches, simple things like this, cuts, etc. Allergies. So we've got quite a bit of experience with allergies. We have, like we said, we have a new moon group, like a monthly fellowship that we host in our home. And, someone said to me one time, he said, do you have any indoor animals? Because I know you have outdoor animals. And I said, yeah, I have 4 cats that are mainly indoors. And he's like, you're kidding me. I'm allergic to cats and I'm really not having a reaction. So, one of course is I vacuum and clean and things like that. But I make a carpet cleaner out of essential oils. So, you take the baking soda and you put some of the oils in there and you just shake it up, and I shake it all over the carpet before I vacuum. And so that helps. And then we run diffusers throughout our event with a blend that's usually, I think I have it on here. It's usually a blend of like peppermint, frankincense,
eucalyptus, lavender, lemon, tea tree. Those are all helpful for allergies. And we'll just put them all in there. No real science behind it.
So I was going to ask, so you're blending it yourself, and you're
Yes.
just sort of just guessing? And
Well, we'll try to keep it balanced. You can go online and find specific ingredients, but with the diffuser, because it's in a tub of water, you just put a bunch of drops of each one, probably 2, 3, or 4.
Most of the oil companies at this point have made allergy blends and made things like that. So then you don't have to think that hard.
Right.
I like things that make you don't have to think that hard.
You are invited to Passover 2025, Bought with Blood, April 11th to 13th. You can join us here live in studio at the Rood Awakening International Headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina, or watch online. There are just a few seats remaining to watch in person, and tickets are going fast. Meet the speakers, have dinner with us, even a special non-broadcast sharing time on Sunday. And if you can't be here with us, that's okay too. You can watch online Friday and Saturday. Both options are available now at PassoverCharlotte.com. Special guests at Passover 2025 include former Islamic jihadist Kamal Salim, Joel Richardson, Alan Aguirre, Al McCarn, John Snyder, and musical guest David Salinas Jr. Plus, as a special bonus, get 20% off almost anything in our store, on-site or online, all weekend long.
A Rood Awakening International presents Passover 2025, Bought with Blood. Get your tickets now at PassoverCharlotte.com.
So this one was kind of a funny one in a sense of just what was happening. So my daughter started sleepwalking maybe 10 years ago. No,
She was young, maybe
less than
not
that.
quite that young.
6 years ago or so. She started sleepwalking. And it was funny because she always comes to find me every time she's sleepwalking. No matter where I'm at, she just comes and she would sit next to me. And one time, it was so hilarious. She'll probably be embarrassed that I tell you this. But she came and she sat down next to me and she comes over and she honks my nose. And then she like boops me on the nose. And it was hilarious.
As she's sleeping.
As she's sleeping. But I would talk to her, and it was when she didn't answer back that I realized that she was sleeping. Otherwise, I didn't have a clue because she just was interacting almost normally. In any case, but sleepwalking can be dangerous, and it can lead to, I don't want her to walk out of the house and things like that. So I came up with, I placed a diffuser in her room, again, and there's a good night oil that's supposed to just help you sleep. And I started using that in her room, and she stopped sleepwalking.
Wow.
Almost immediately. Yeah, so it's whether
Sleep
it just helps
problems
her.
go away when you start, if you sleep with a diffuser with this sleep blend. It really does. It'll just help you go to sleep.
Yeah, whether it just kind of put her into a deeper sleep or how that worked, I don't even know. I don't understand the science behind it, but it absolutely worked for her.
Now, some people are going to ask, well, what brand are you? What is this sleep blend? So we're going to talk about that in a later episode. And we are going to mention the brand because I want to know what brand it is. And, there's other ones too that, that are multi-level and things like that. And if people don't mind that, great. But we want to talk about what brand you use. And let's not be afraid to say it because I want to know what you guys are doing.
Excellent. Yeah, and we don't represent any brands, like we don't sell the oils.
Right, yeah, even more
and
so.
And so it's one of the reasons why we like to teach it, and we feel free to teach it because we're not saying like, and then when you buy these things, I get a check for $100, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's what's kind of nice, and so that's why we enjoy teaching about them without being like tied financially to one of the companies.
And by the way, this is a company I'd never heard of because it is, I'm out in North Carolina, and you guys, this is a local brand in California.
Yes,
so.
we use a company called Eden's Gardens.
Okay.
We've been very happy with them. We found them 10 years ago, maybe.
Through some of your research that you were doing.
Yeah, through the research. They're a local company, which I'm a big fan of, because when I taught on the temple, God's system tiers up from city to city. He's a big fan of local industries. So we by no means say they're the only company that has good essential oils. There's a lot of them out there that do a really good job making essential oils. That's the one we use. And if later episode, we can share a few others that we found are good. They do third-party testing. You can test them to see if they're, 100% essential oil and find out how well they're going to work.
Oh, okay.
But we've been really happy with this company. It's a Christian-based company, and last I read on their website, they donate to different mission groups. I think they were focused on teens, younger kids that are struggling, and we've been very happy with them.
Okay.
But
yeah, because it does matter. The different brands do matter. We had a friend she had something on her hand, and she goes, we were first talking about the oils, and she's like, look, I'm a little bit of a hesitant on this. And she said, so I've got this thing, right? Because everybody's got something. And she's like, I've got this thing on my hand. I don't even know what it is, but I've had it like many years. And I want to get rid of it. So do you think it would treat that? And I said, well, part of the problem with the oils is you need to know what you're treating. So you have to identify it. And so we kind of looked up we were doing our own research, and we sort of looked up what we thought it was. And so I pulled some oils that I thought would treat it. And she came back to me again just a couple weeks later, and she's like, it's shrinking, it's going away. And she's like, and I've had this thing for years. So, so some of this they're not, like a lot of times it's not like one drop and you're done. A lot of times, and that's what the second example I had here, is that they need to be done over time. So I had a friend who came to me and he's like, okay, I've got this thing on my foot, and I'm gonna be traveling for 30 days. So can you make a blend for me that will treat this? And I promise for the next 30 days, I'll use it every day. And so when he got back, I said, so did it work? And he's like, it's gone. Wow. And he's like, but he knew because he tried it before, but he was never consistent. So he had to get himself to a point where he was using it consistently. Because something like a foot fungus or whatever, that's gonna take longer to get rid of. And so it's applying it all the time and using it.
We definitely don't, they don't produce miracles. Oftentimes it's from the Bible. Yeshua used them, miracles. It's not a miraculous thing, but when used correctly over time, they definitely make a difference.
And I think we overcomplicate things like that too. Oh, is it this type of cyst or that type of cyst? But
right.
It don't matter. You put the same oil, like you said, you just guessed it, the oil, and let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, great, it's not gonna hurt you That's the other great part of it, is if you're being safe with these things, they're not going to hurt you if you got the not to use the word, but diagnosis wrong. If you mistook what it was, it's no big deal.
And what is the verse? A great understanding.
A good understanding have all they that do His commandments. Psalm 111:10. That's one of my favorite verses.
We have it like over our front room. On a big sign. And I say that because it's by using and doing that you learn. So you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, that's a tumor thing. That's probably frankincense is an anti-tumoral, and so you just kind of start learning the oils as you go along, and so you kind of start learning what to put together and things like that. So anyways, I have a niece that is really into horses, been training them and for working them for many years. And so I asked her specifically about this example, and she said she had this ear mite problem with her horse that they were trying to treat, and again, it wasn't going away, and that could be a real problem. So she made an oil blend for her horse and kind of was rubbing it inside the horse's ear, and very quickly the ear mites went away.
Wow.
So anyways, I've done them with dogs with different injuries, but again, you can't, generally, especially with animals, and we're going to get that to with our next sides, which is safety, is you want to blend things so that you're not, especially with animals and things like that, because direct application is usually not the best way to go. So you generally I did one where I mixed it with like glycerin, like a medicated ointment, and then mix the oils in with it, right? Or make an oil blend or that kind of thing. And that takes us to our next slide. But so essentially all essential oils have been used for thousands of years, but there are safety concerns that need to be addressed, because you don't ever want to go into any type of medication and stuff without your knowledge and your awareness. So one is a common assumption that because it is natural, it means safe. And that's not always true. Second is, and this is Robert Tisserand, and he's a chemist from Britain, and he's known for bringing aromatherapy back to Britain, like in the 70s or 80s. Well known in this industry, written lots of books. He's one of the gurus of the industry, and he's a chemist. He knows what he's talking about. But he said this. He said, although essential oils are natural substances, natural and safe have never been synonymous. Nature is replete with poisonous plants, deadly nightshade, wolfsbane, foxglove, right? Suicide tree, etc. Not to mention spiders, snakes, scorpions, right? All of these, things that we have in nature. And so nature isn't always safe, but it can be used to our advantage. So there are some safety concerns. One, children. And there's some studies about that. There are adverse reactions reported to U.S. poison centers grouped by age. You can see that under 6, there's a much greater thing. And oftentimes because, again, we're smart to lock away our medicines, and we tell our kids, oh, we're putting this in a medicine cabinet and it's up high and whatever. People aren't always that safe with their essential oils. So they leave them down where children and things can get a hold of them. And a lot of times our kids are like, oh yeah, what's this? And
drinking a whole bottle of an essential oil can be...
It's not good.
Very dangerous.
It's really not good.
And a child might accidentally do that.
Now, we want to say this chart is not all essential oils. This is poison in general.
Well, this chart is essential oil.
So this is actually specific.
It is.
But the next chart will point out that almost all of these are incredibly minor reactions. So this is adverse reactions. If you go to the next chart,
right.
you'll...
One of the things I want to point out, though, is you're still talking, there's probably, 10, 11,000 here, but that's across the United States. So that's not a lot of adverse reactions compared to how many people there are in the United States and things like that. So it's important to note the chart so you can see that it's kids under 6, but still in the long run, as far as compared to other medications and the side effects are way worse than that.
Yeah, and that's
a lot
over the
more
course of
dangerous
20
than that.
years, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So adverse reactions reported to U.S. poison centers grouped by age. Again.
Oh, there you go. And
the minor ones are like, almost all of them are minor reactions. They're nothing major. The major ones are someone really messed up by like drinking a whole bottle. Ingestion is one of the more dangerous things you can do. So you got to be very careful, which she's going to.
But all the same, keep them up with other medications, keep them away from pets and kids, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So children is something you want to be careful of. Ingestion is the other thing we just mentioned. Oftentimes, because I've seen people do it when they go to like take the oils, they have no idea how many drops they're really even putting in their mouth. Because you're going like this and you can't really taste it and sense it. And so people will often over ingest. And again, it's a great way to injure your esophagus and things like that.
It's not recommended.
It's not recommended.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, direct application, which is neat, that's when you generally apply it directly onto a specific injury.
Which is what you just did for the headache.
Which is what I just did for your
headache.
headache.
Which, by the way, it's 75% gone.
Not bad.
So, not bad.
Not bad.
Okay.
Because we only did 2 drops. Honestly, we did 1 drop on each side of your head.
It was very, very little. Yeah.
But that was a blend, which means it was already kind of mixed with a carrier oil, so it wasn't applied.
It wasn't applied neat. So neat typically means without a carrier oil.
Right.
It means directly. So there are certain oils that are considered hot oils, and they can be more dangerous if you apply them. And some people can start to build up a sensitivity to it over time. Like maybe the first time you apply peppermint, it's not a big deal. The 4th time you're applying it neat, it's gonna start, it could be a problem.
Okay.
Phototoxicity,
Toxicity.
Thank you, totally said that wrong. Is something you wanna be aware of.
Yes, I've actually got personal experience with this. I was trying to treat something right on the side of my nose, but that basically means it's going to give you a sunburn really fast once you go out in the sun. And you got to be careful with that. Normally, if I would have just stayed inside, but I went outside working on, came back in, I had a blister on my nose because it really just amplified the sun's rays. And it's just something to be aware of. It didn't hurt me other than me going out in the sun.
So if you're going to do that, cover it with a bandage or something?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
some oils are phototoxic, some oils are much less phototoxic. So you need to be careful, and you can go online and find out which ones, and there's usually lots of lists that you can find.
Right, so it's just something to be aware of, because I just saw a news report that they were talking about even your regular medications, because of the huge heat wave we're having, react differently in your body with all the heat and the exposure and such. So again, always something to be careful of. Allergic reaction. Some people have allergic reactions to certain oils. And so I've had people they'll come up and they're like, oh, you have mosquitoes here, and they just spray something on me. And I'm like, what is that? Oh, it's an oil blend. And I was like, you have no idea if I'm allergic to what you just sprayed on me. Like, you can't just apply things to people without asking.
Right.
And again, it's like most things, if you've never used something before, you don't know if you have a reaction to it. So you should want to be smart and go slow. And see whether you have an issue. Pets is another one, right? Anything small, when you've got small children and small pets, again, you're thinking, most of us think as adults, right? And you wouldn't take the same size medicine for an adult that you would for a child.
But not only that, dogs smell way better than we do.
Yes.
So the diffuser might affect them in greater ways than they would affect
that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll talk about that. So personal medical conditions. We had a friend with a heart condition and was trying some different oils and found that they were actually interacting with her medication, which isn't typical. But in her case, it was something that we ended up having to change the oil blend that she was using for that reason. And because she'd used it before where she was taking this medicine and it wasn't a problem for her. Anyway, so interactions with medicine and the elderly as well, because again, they have thinner skin a lot of times, and so they're gonna be a lot more sensitive to the oils. So last thing here, so according to an article by the ASPCA, so again, dealing with pets, because that's a big concern for a lot of our, people love their fur babies. But in their concentrated form, 100%, essential oils can be a danger for a pet. Dogs and cats who have either walked through oils, gotten some out of their coat, or had oils placed directly on them can develop health concerns. And again, this is usually a lot, because these oils, they're generally 1 drop at a time. So you get something where, you're taking an entire bottle, that's gonna be a problem.
It's easy to overdo it, because you're supposed to use so little.
And so they might see, unsteadiness, depression, low body temperature in pets. If a pet ingested concentrated essential oils, you may see vomiting, diarrhea, depression even as well. Some oils may in fact be more harmful than others. However, there are several factors that affect this, such as a concentration level, what the product is mixed with. For example, concentrated forms of tea tree or melaleuca may cause issues for your pets with only 7 or 8 drops, whereas another oil may take less. Right? And sometimes it's a combination. I found oregano is a really hot oil. It's one of those ones you have to be careful of. And I had it in like a foot bath, and I just put like a drop in a foot bath, and it burned my feet. So I found I was really sensitive to the oregano, whereas I don't typically have that problem with tea tree, which is basically does the same thing. It's just not quite as strong, more common. In any case, using an oil diffuser as we have here, it's okay in a secured area, but for a short time period. But again, the smaller like the apartment, the smaller the room, the more openness you want to have, right, when you're using diffusers, because then you're going to put that into a concentrated area. So it can cause, for pets and stuff like that, there's been reports of breathing problems and those kinds of things. Anyways, so there's always concerns, especially if again, the smaller the animal, the more the concern. Birds are another one. Birds have a really small respiratory system. And so you have to be careful with your kind of essential oils for that.
No, that would make sense. All right.
So yeah, remember to dilute and use the oils responsibly.
All right, very good. So this is a good first step into this. We have 3 more episodes to go. So thank you guys for joining us today. And we will come back next week and talk more about this. So I'm going to sneak ahead here. We're actually going to talk about, oil and the Levitical priesthood. I'm assuming that's you, Steve. Yes. And then we're going to talk about aromatic and topical uses. So again, we talked about the difference there. And Rochelle, you'll be teaching us about that.
That's right.
All right, so come back for more next week on Shabbat Night Live with Steve and Rochelle. Thank you very much for joining us, and until next week, we bid you Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.
Whenever and wherever you are watching this broadcast, it represents hundreds of man-hours of production and post-production, and then it goes out to the world in several different languages. Why is this possible? It's because people like you support this ministry. We do our best to get this out freely to the entire world. Freely you have received. Now, this is your opportunity to do as Yeshua said, and freely give.